Boy, I got to tell you, this map is as interesting as our other maps, but very very interesting. First thing that we saw in yesterday's episode was that yes, indeed, there was a Panama Canal before, and this Panama Canal is older than our current one, wider than our current one, and that's what made it possible for the Latins, the Western Roman Empire, to make a new home over here in the western side of Mexico. And so it's just fascinating because they continue and go north into Nova Mexico. So this down here is Mexico, and this becomes Nova Mexico, or as we know it, New Mexico. Ludoviciana is Louisiana in Latin, and all of this up here is in Latin. Now we do have a good date for this map, okay? And welcome everyone to the Breadcrumbs Project. Uh, I am Captain Crumb, Euripides Crumb, the founder of the Breadcrumbs Project, and that's not my real name, but that's my fun name that I've had on here, the Breadcrumbs Project, since the beginning. Um, so what we have here for today's episode is this language right here, INS, and I have no idea what INS colon means. And again, this is all in ancient Latin. Okay. Antille detectare per Christophum Columbum, au año year 1492. So the Latins were also established on the AD year. And I just firmly believe that the Western Empire and the Eastern Empire, through the ancient families, kept in touch and kept everything going. So Antileni, and that's down here, this group of islands, the Antilles, down here. And this is Cristofel. And someone else was following my logic that had this map, a previous owner of this map, because he or she, but I'm pretty sure he, marked it up. A very expensive map, put a red pen to it. And yeah, so functionally speaking, Christopher Columbus had no idea of what he happened upon, but he's the first European that that made it here and made it to these outer islands. And so I'm pretty sure that the retreat started around then, destroying of buildings, burning of buildings, and getting rid of as much as they could, holding the French, British, and Spanish off while they retreated. And kept retreating. And then the British found them. Okay. And so this became Infraventum Hispanorum. So these became the Spanish Isles, where the Spanish started to infiltrate. And then these are the British Isles. where they had established themselves over here. I think that the British Isles, the royals, and all the power people, the wealthy, the elite, those that created the city of London. So we know that we have London, and in the middle of the city of London is a square mile called the City of London. Yes. And that was established by the Romans AD 43. And it has its own laws, its own customs, its own rules. If the monarch wants to come to the city of London, he has to ask by written permission. So the city of London has power over the British monarchy. So I think that money was coming into Great Britain from the Americas and keeping them at bay through gold and silver until it until what happens to humans is we we over replicate and Europe was bursting at the seams. I'm not sure how everything really went down, but boats started making it over here and just started progressing. So this is Carolina, all right, Carolina. In Latin, it's Carolina, expensive line. So what I think is when the British found out and started emigrating over here, that they were kept in this area and it was expensive to do so by the Latins. So yeah, this is an interesting rewriting of history. We are still in the time of sail, and we haven't moved into the ships of iron and such. So we are still under sail and fighting as medieval folks do. The question becomes: are these Indians with bow and arrow Romans? Are they the Romans? And these the humans? Because these guys seem to be in charge, and they look large. And I can tell you that the city of Santiago de Compostela, the old city, all the temples, and the cathedral, those doors were built for giants. Those aren't grandiose doors for humans that just exalted. All the temples, I mean all the churches and the cathedral in Santiago and most of the buildings accommodate giants. We have in the tradition in Spain, in Spain, we have the giants, and we have giants that walk through the streets and we create. But they're 9 foot giants and they go dancing. Son los gigantes is as natural to Spaniards as a glass of red wine. The giants. The Basque have a giants tradition. Here in Galicia, we have a giants tradition because we have Santiago de Compostela, which was a city for the giants. Yeah. And so that architecture is Latin, Roman. So my question is, were the Latin Roman and if you go to Italy, if you go to anywhere in Europe to old stone buildings, you will see that the hey, yes, okay, hey, Data 1B, yes, I have done the same lookup. And if you break out and this is Data 1B4, he's in the chat section, live chat. So thank you for joining and putting your comment in. Sorry it's taking me a long time to get here to read it, but yes, I did the same lookup on Ludo, Vicky, Anna, and Ludo, Vicky, Iana is I won the game. Yeah, that's it. That's a tell. That's a nervous itch. Yeah, yeah. Or Ludo, Vicky, Anna, which is I won the game, Anna, and that this map is full of mystery, full of surprise. The other thing I can say, Carolina, is that California is also a Latin name, and I know through through um, the local Galician language that forna is an oven. We still have a lot of Latin names around here in northern Spain. Huerta, which is a garden. There's a lot of Latin remnants in Galician Spain. We're a very unique community in that sense. But Carolina is expensive line, and California is hot oven. Cali is hot in Latin. So yes, there is a lot to take in whenever you're looking at this stuff with new eyes. And we can do some translations. So we will get a translation. We've already done this phrase down here. Um, and Panama, you can see the separation here. This is proper separation. Panama is it's for you, referring the um, to the Panama Canal. So let's get a shot of this. I've done the transcription before of this, but it's been a while. So um, I am going to get all of this and make a copy of it. Before we do, let me just get really back here for the date Christopher Columbus discovered discovered uh, the New World, and it was down here, and the amount of time that it took to start to populate this. I mean, it didn't just happen overnight, guys. This is a sale. They had to go. They had to make it back and forth, and then start to get more boats. The population, the populating of the Americas by the Spanish took a long time. I think the Americans were already here. I think the British were already here. I think they were speaking American English here as their secondary language. So Latin was always kept as a control language and never taught to the population, only the elites, and especially in modern times. Well, not modern times, but not too long ago, the priestly class, the governing class, and the medical class, all upper echelon, spoke Latin. So all the elites back then spoke Latin, and then they had a secondary language that they would speak to the normal people, the plebes, the average folks. So Latin was a control language A normal person back then couldn't read this map and understand anything that it says, like current world. So I think the real story is the Latins had created this barrier for the British, or anybody really, anybody that made it here. But I think the British were already here through the city of London. Okay. And in England, understand back in the 1400s and uh, before modern times, they were speaking a Finnish style of language. Their language was not English or Old English back then. English for the British Isles is pretty modern, pretty recent. I would say, um, around the 1400s, 1500s. Yeah, it's a very Flemish, Finnish style of language. I've watched several shows of interpreting documents that were from, you know, 1100s, 1200s, and it was a Finnish language. What happens? The elites learn the second language, English, and they start teaching it to their court, and the court starts putting it out into the country. And next thing you know, it's law that you have to speak this language, and you are barred from speaking the other one on uh, you know execution, death. Uh, yeah. So, and that happens. I mean, that happened here in Spain. Uh, when Franco took over the country, the Basque could no longer speak their language, and here in Galicia, the Gallegos could no longer speak their language. Although it's such a big country and up in the mountains, you can't invoke those kind of laws. You wish you could. In the big cities, it's doable, and it did happen. But in the small outline areas, the language was still maintained. And once Franco went away, these languages came back to northern Spain. All right. So yeah, this was a buffer, and since it has a whole bunch of English city names, Norfolk, Suffolk, Middlesex, New York, Nova York, and this is Nova Anglia. So this is New England. So this is coming from Anglia. So yes, I fully believe that the English colonies here were here before before our man Columbus detected it. I think it was well established. And what happened in the Dark Ages? These maps were taken out. These maps only stayed in the libraries of the elite of universities, and so everything else was Ignatius, ignited, burned, and that's what created the Dark Ages. Is the priestly class, and I'm absolutely sure that the elite nobles were completely in charge of burning these things down. Not the edifices, but all of the documentation of the Romans and the Latins and any technology that they had. I'm sure for hundreds of years there was a massive effort to dumb down Europe. It happened, and then go through the Dark Ages and persecute, and then after Dark Ages, let the medieval times come in, and then the Renaissance, and then suddenly you have all these new magnificent buildings that were created during the Renaissance, and all this huge, beautiful art that was created during the Renaissance, and it wasn't there. That had happened. That happened during the Latin Roman times. I think it was done uh, by giants and by men. and with amazing technology and amazing metals. Yep. So that's that's what this map shows. And the other thing that it shows is the miles. Okay, they don't have any U.S. American any type of mile like that. What they have is the Galician mile, the uh, the Galician and Hispanic in Hispania, which is Latin for Spanish, Spain. They have their mile listed, okay, and then the Hispanic mile, and then the Anglican mile. So if you need to chart anything or do anything distance wise, which is what maps are all for, then this is your key. Which means that the level of detail on this map is measurable so that you can get a good idea of the distance from here to there, how many miles. That's pretty sophisticated. That is pretty sophisticated. So yes, Carolina, uh, expensive line, and I think this is keeping the British at bay. And down here, we are keeping the Spanish separated and at bay. And I think that's what insul. I think that means insulated. So the pirates, the quote unquote pirates, which are actually Latins, they they keep everybody in place for as long as they can while they're doing their retreat. Where do the Latins retreat to? That's a good question. That is a very, very good question. But yeah, you have New Mexico here, and I won Anna or Louisiana, depending on how you translate this here, or I won the game, which is Ludi Viki Vic Iana. Yeah, if you translate it, if you do the Ludo Vic Iana, means I won the game, and that's the Louisiana. Well, that's basically the South. So I'm sure it has a very, very, very interesting story to tell. All right, we're translating this down here, and get a translate page up over here. Images, detect language, paste from clipboard, and English. All right, pop it up here for you guys, and get it on the big screen. All right, his Rio Grande. Oh, good, it caught that. All right, and one of the ships held an anchor, which signifies the arrival of cargo ships. On which occasion a messenger was sent to Carthage, warning them of the arrival of Lima and Panama. The royals must be brought immediately. Huh. That's interesting. Regias. All right. So Yeah, here, and it detected Latin, by the way, just so you know. So here, one of the ships held an anchor, which signifies the arrival of cargo ships, on which occasion a messenger was sent to Carthage, warning them of the arrival of Lima and Panama. Okay, here is Carthage, right here. So that sails out to here, or it goes this way. That's the sailing route. So this is the expansion happening from the Spanish area. Okay, yeah. So uh, definitely Latins, and they're hiding. They are definitely hiding. That is really interesting. I'm glad y'all find it interesting too, because well, what happened after the Dark Ages, after the medieval age, and then Renaissance, uh, the education was rolled out by the Roman Catholic Church. So all the universities, all the educational institutions, they were coming out of the church. The church were the educated after the Dark Ages. The church, the elites, and the royals were the highly educated class. Everybody else was plebes and couldn't read, write, do basic math. That's it. So that's who came out. And what they would have us believe is that these amazing people in the Renaissance just suddenly built out Europe, boom, with all these amazing buildings, cathedrals, magnificent cathedrals, especially in Rome, but in all the major old European cities. I mean, just stunning, stunning buildings. It was just done by a bunch of ignorant uh, Europeans that were just coming out of the dark ages that didn't know how to read or write. And you're looking at these magnificent, magnificent buildings. Uh, you can just think of anything in Rome. And 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 you mean to tell me that that was built after the dark ages? Suddenly, they had the skill set and engineering. The biggest thing that you need is to design it. First, you need an architect, and the architect understands load bearing and arches. And there's definitely the Roman arch and then the Gothic arch. And I've seen in Spain in Santo Domingo, in Santiago de Compostela, where they've started practicing with the Gothic arch, the Romans. So the engineering had to be there first. I mean, the architect had to be there first to design the building and understand load bearings and and weight distribution and foundations. From the bottom up, an architect designs a building. Then the engineer comes in and engineers it. And then you have the builder come in and build it. For such buildings, it had to be an amazing process that they had, or just an amazing workforce that just disappeared. Well, didn't disappear. They moved over to Latin America. And I think that's what we're going to do tomorrow is look at the buildings in Central America and just see how the Latins just moved across the Americas and built these amazing, amazing structures, buildings, temples, temples. They built temples. There's a temple to Athena in the center of the United States. Magnificent building. So yeah, there's a lot of history, a lot of story that was kept from us and was retold by the Roman Catholic Church, especially the Jesuits. The Jesuits were the ones that went out and made contact, and they established the schools. They established the universities, the university system. All of that was created by the Roman Catholic Church, and especially the Jesuits. And the in the old way of doing things in Europe here, if you had any money whatsoever and you wanted to give your child an education and a fighting chance to make good, well, you sent your son to a monastery, or you sent your daughters to a nun's monastery, and yeah, you will get um, a good education, but you have to stay there and be completely indoctrinated by the tough nuns and tough priests. And I know my ex girlfriend was with the nuns for 2 years until she just couldn't take it anymore. Uh, and and yeah, did did it did pretty well. But she explained to me the process, and it was brutal. The nuns were tough, punishing, and totally into brainwashing, and it worked. It worked. Not on her. Not on her. But she did conform to get along, and she actually helps. She said that the transformation of her in the monastery um, was was pretty impressive, and it really did help her. So at first she resented it, then she went with it, and in the end she was grateful for it because it was the only means of getting an education. And she is from the small town Mushia, and 50 years ago, 60 years ago, it was a completely different town. There was no education. It was good. I mean, for what was going on in Spain, it was a good town to live in and a good area to be. But you were going to be a fisherman, and if you're a woman, you're going to be married to a fisherman, and that was your future, as your fathers were doing, because this was then a fishing village 100 years ago, and with a low population, very low population. So, um, yeah, something's dinging on my computer, and I don't know what it is. But yeah, we gone 30 minutes, and we have determined that Columbus did not discover the Americas. Columbus detected the outer islands, and I'm sure there was mass panic by the Latins in the process of withdrawing themselves. You can see in the old pictures that everything was burnt off, that areas were cleared as much as possible, and that these old, beautiful stone Roman style buildings, especially in the cities, that was what was there. So all that stuff was already there, and and the people that were moving in from Europe to the Americas on the mass migrations were seeing um, these magnificent buildings there, and the people that are already living there who are already trained and prepped and oh yeah, 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 no, no, this was built in so and so and so and so. So there were humans and Latins here, and I just don't know what happened to all the people as they withdrew. But yeah, it's a very very interesting story that we are going to unfold. And so tomorrow we're going to start with the buildings. All right. Thank you all very much. 35 minutes, not too bad. We will see you tomorrow at 11 o'clock Eastern.